People ask me all the time, Warren, how did you make over $100 billion? And they expect me to hand them a complex formula, some magic trick, or a secret only billionaires know. But the truth is I built my fortune on one simple rule, a rule so simple that most people ignore it because they think it can't possibly be enough to create extraordinary wealth. But I can tell you from more than 80 years of living and more than 70 years of investing that the biggest wins in life come from the simplest ideas. And my one rule is this: never lose money. Now, at first, you might hear that and think, well, Warren, that's obvious, who wants to lose money? But here's the thing. Most people don't truly live by it. They chase quick gains. They gamble on trends they don't understand. They buy things because someone told them it was hot, and then they wonder why they lose it all. When I say never lose money, I mean I approach every single investment, every single decision with the mindset that my first job is to protect what I already have, and the second job is to grow it. And I protect it by understanding exactly what I'm putting my money into, by buying businesses, not just stocks, by focusing on value, not hype. When I started in Omaha as a young man, I didn't have much money, but I had an advantage. I was willing to learn, to study, to read hundreds of pages a day. And I learned that if you buy a great company at a fair price and you hold it for the long term, letting compounding do its magic, you don't have to chase anything. The wealth comes to you slowly at first and then all at once. And that's the power of my one rule, because when you refuse to lose money, you avoid the big mistakes that wipe people out. And avoiding big mistakes matters more than hitting big wins. People think investing is about always being right, but it's really about avoiding being catastrophically wrong. I've seen fortunes built over decades vanish in months because someone ignored this rule. They over-leveraged. They took on debt they couldn't handle. They chased a hot market they didn't understand, and it's all because they forgot that step one is not to get rich fast. It's to stay rich forever. When I buy into a business, I look at it as if I were going to own it for the rest of my life. I want to know how it makes money, whether it has a moat. That's my term for a sustainable advantage. And whether the people running it are honest and capable. If I don't understand it, I don't buy it. That's why I passed on a lot of so-called opportunities over the years, including many in the tech boom, and people thought I was out of touch. But sticking to what I understand kept me from losing money when those bubbles burst. You don't have to swing at every pitch. In fact, in investing, there's no penalty for not swinging. You can wait as long as you like for the right pitch, the one you understand, the one that gives you a high probability of success. And then when it comes, you swing hard and you hold and you let time and compounding do what they do best. People overcomplicate this because they want excitement. They want action. But if you want excitement, go to the casino. If you want wealth, learn patience, discipline, and the humility to admit what you don't know. Never lose money is not about being timid. It's about being intelligent. It's about understanding risk before you think about reward. It's about making sure that no matter what happens in the market, you're still in the game, because the market will go up and it will go down, and sometimes it will go down more than you thought possible. But if you've followed my rule, if you've bought great businesses you understand at fair prices, if you've avoided debt, if you've kept cash for opportunities, you won't be shaken out. You'll be ready to take advantage when others are panicking, and that's when the real money is made, not by timing the market perfectly, but by being prepared when the market hands you a bargain. So my advice to anyone who wants to build wealth, whether it's 100,000 or 100 billion, is to engrave this rule into your mind: never lose money, and then make every decision in business and investing, even in life, through that lens. Protect your downside, let the upside take care of itself, and over a lifetime, you'll be amazed at what that discipline can do. Now let me tell you something most people never realize until it's too late. Building wealth isn't about genius-level IQ. It's about behavior, discipline, and consistency. And when I say never lose money, that's not just a rule for investing. It's a mindset for life, because the way you treat $1 today is the way you'll treat $1 million later. If you're careless with small amounts, you'll be reckless with large amounts, and that's how empires fall. When I was young, I didn't spend my time worrying about what I couldn't control. I focused on the one thing I could control, my decisions. I understood that every decision carries a price and an opportunity cost, meaning if I chose the wrong place to put my time, energy, or money, I'd lose not just the money, but also the time I could never get back. So I became obsessed with protecting both. People call me a value investor, but really I'm a value protector. I look for opportunities where the downside is minimal and the upside is meaningful. And then I wait patiently for those opportunities. Patience is the rarest commodity in today's world. Everyone wants to get rich yesterday. They want their investments to double in weeks. They want success without the slow grind. But wealth is like growing a tree. You plant a seed, you water it, you protect it, and you let time do its job. If you dig it up every few days to check on it, it dies. I let compounding work for me the way gravity works on a ball rolling downhill, slow at first, but unstoppable over time. I made my first million not by gambling or chasing hot stocks, but by buying businesses I understood, businesses that would still be around 10, 20, 50 years later. I didn't just think about the next quarter. I thought about the next quarter century. I want you to understand something. Your greatest advantage isn't inside information or fancy charts. It's your ability to sit still while others are rushing around, because in the stock market, money flows from the impatient to the patient. I've been through recessions, crashes, bear markets, and every time the pattern is the same. Fear takes over, prices fall, and those who didn't follow my rule get wiped out. But those who've protected themselves, who've avoided losing money, who've stayed liquid, they can buy assets at pennies on the dollar. And that's where fortunes are made. The funny thing is people call it luck. They say, Warren, you were lucky to buy when prices were low, but it's not luck. It's preparation meeting opportunity. You can't predict the timing, but you can prepare for the moment, and preparation is just another word for discipline. The discipline to say no to bad deals, no to things you don't understand, no to chasing the crowd. I've missed out on a lot of things people thought were the next big thing, but I've also avoided a lot of disasters, and in the long run, avoiding disasters is more important than hitting home runs. I want you to think about a leaky boat. If you're in one, you can row harder or you can fix the leak. Most people keep rowing harder, trying to make more money, work more hours, take bigger risks. But if you've got a leak, whether it's bad spending habits, bad investments, or bad partnerships, the first thing you should do is fix it. That's what never losing money is all about. Sealing the leaks before they sink you, because once you're sunk, it's a lot harder to get back in the game. So train yourself to see risk first, reward second, to think in terms of decades, not days, and to remember that no matter how high your ambitions are, survival comes first, because you can't win the game if you're not in the game. And the way you stay in the game is simple. Never lose money. People often ask me, Warren, what exactly do you mean by never lose money when everyone knows markets go up and down? And the answer is simple but not easy. It's about making decisions where the odds are overwhelmingly in your favor and where you have enough margin of safety to survive the unexpected. Because the unexpected always comes, and if you build your strategy on the assumption that everything will go perfectly, you're setting yourself up for disaster. When I invest, I'm not looking for perfection. I'm looking for resilience. I'm asking, if everything goes wrong, will this still be standing? Will it still be making money? Will it still be worth holding? I never buy into a company just because the price is going up. I buy because the business itself is strong, the management is competent, and the long-term prospects are solid. And I buy it at a price where even if the market panics tomorrow, I'm not forced to sell. That's why I keep so much cash on hand, not because I'm afraid to invest, but because I want to be ready when opportunity knocks, and opportunities usually knock the loudest during crisis. During the 2008 financial meltdown, while others were selling at any price just to get out, I was buying companies I believed in because I knew their value hadn't changed, only their price had. And that's the essence of my one rule. I don't risk my capital on things I don't understand or things that can be wiped out overnight. The world is full of smart people who are broke because they didn't respect risk. They thought they could outsmart the market. They thought they could borrow heavily and double their money. But leverage is a double-edged sword. It can make you rich faster, but it can also destroy you instantly. I've always preferred the slow, steady, certain path to the fast, risky one, because the slow path with compounding is actually faster than people think. I call compounding the eighth wonder of the world, and the reason it works is because I've avoided the big losses that reset the clock. If you lose 50% of your money, you don't need a 50% gain to get back to even. You need 100%, and that takes time. You can never recover. That's why avoiding losses is more important than chasing gains. People see me as an optimist, and I am, but I'm an optimist with a plan for the worst case scenario. I never assume the sun will shine forever. I prepare for the rain, and when it rains on Wall Street, it pours, and that's when you see who's been swimming naked. As my partner Charlie Munger likes to say, when you stick to my one rule, you're never the one caught without a bathing suit. Because you've kept your reserves, you've stayed within your circle of competence, you've avoided debt that forces you to act against your will, and you've made sure that every move you make strengthens your position rather than weakens it. So when the storm passes, you're not just still standing, you're in a position to grow even stronger. And over a lifetime, that makes the difference between those who end up with a little and those who end up with a lot. It's not flashy, it's not thrilling, but it works. And the proof is in my own results. $100 billion built one careful decision at a time by never losing money. Now, if you really want to understand how I applied my one rule in building over $100 billion, you have to see how I approach every single opportunity, because most people think investing is about saying yes. But in reality, it's about saying no 99 times out of 100. My success is far more to do with the things I didn't do than the things I did. Every time I'm presented with an idea, I ask myself first, can this lose me money? And if the answer is yes, and I can't find a way to control that risk, I simply walk away, no matter how tempting the reward looks. That's the difference between discipline and greed. Greed makes you focus on what you might gain. Discipline makes you focus on what you might lose, and discipline wins in the long run. My one rule isn't about fear, it's about strength. It's about playing offense from a position of defense. People don't realize that the reason I can invest billions into a company when everyone else is terrified is because I've kept myself protected. I've kept my balance sheet clean. I've stayed in businesses I understand. I've avoided the temptation to stretch into areas that look exciting but are beyond my circle of competence. In my career, I've watched entire industries rise and fall. I've seen once great companies vanish because they forgot their own version of my one rule. They overextended. They borrowed too much. They chased short-term profits at the expense of long-term stability, and they got caught when the tide went out. My philosophy is that you build wealth the way you build a fortress, brick by brick, with a strong foundation, and you never remove a brick just because you think the storm has passed. You prepare for the next one before it arrives. I have this image in my mind every time I make a decision. I imagine myself 5, 10, 20 years from now looking back at that choice, and I ask, will I be grateful I protected my downside? Will I be glad I didn't take a shortcut? Will I be thankful that I stayed true to my principles? Because the truth is, success isn't a straight line. It's a series of waves. And if you're not anchored by principles, you get tossed around until you're lost. My one rule is that anchor. It's the reason I never panic when the market drops. It's the reason I can act decisively when others freeze. And it's the reason the number in my bank account keeps compounding year after year. People sometimes think my way is boring, but boring works, boring builds, boring lasts. I've never needed excitement from my investments. I get excitement from watching them quietly make me richer over decades. I've always said, if you're looking for thrill, go to the racetrack. If you're looking for wealth, protect your capital and let compounding do the work. And when you do that, you'll discover the same thing I have. The road to 100 billion isn't paved with risky bets and lucky breaks. It's built with patience, discipline, and above all, the refusal to lose money. So if I leave you with one final message, it's this: wealth is not built by chasing every opportunity. It's built by protecting what you already have and making it grow safely. Because the real magic of my one rule is not in the words, it's in the mindset it creates. When you train yourself to never lose money, you automatically become more selective, more patient, and more focused. You stop wasting time on things you don't understand. You stop following the crowd into bubbles that are destined to burst, and you start building a foundation that can stand for a lifetime. I've spent decades living by this principle, and it has shaped every decision, from buying my first shares as a teenager to acquiring some of the largest businesses in the world. And every single time, I've remembered that the easiest way to get rich is to first avoid getting poor. I want you to understand that money is like a snowball. You start small, you roll it slowly, and over time it becomes massive. But only if you don't let it melt. Losing money is like melting your snowball. It sets you back, and the bigger your snowball gets, the more painful the loss becomes. So your job is to guard it with everything you have, to take only the risks you can afford, and to think long term, because there's no point winning a sprint if you lose the marathon. My wealth didn't come from doing extraordinary things. It came from doing ordinary things extraordinarily well, year after year, without interruption. And the reason I could do it without interruption is because I avoided the big mistakes, the permanent losses, the decisions that could knock me out of the game. You can make small mistakes and recover, but one huge mistake can erase decades of progress. So remember, survival comes first, growth comes second. And if you follow that order, you'll not only build wealth, you'll keep it. I've seen far too many people make a fortune and then lose it because they forgot the rule. They let greed, ego, or impatience take the wheel, and the market punished them for it. Don't let that be your story. Let your story be one of steady, unstoppable growth, of capital protected and multiplied, of discipline applied day after day. Because when you do that, you won't need luck, you won't need shortcuts, and you won't need to start over. You'll wake up one day, decades from now, and realize that by simply following one rule, you've built a fortune beyond what you ever imagined, and you've done it the safest way possible, by never losing money.